Hello and good day to everyone. It's 1 p.m. UK time, so it is time to start our live event. Today we have a little bit of a different timing for our webinar because we are actually connected to Australia, Perth. So, hello to Australia. Hello to you, Karenna. How are you feeling today?
I am great, thank you. It's lovely to connect, and thank you for doing the different time zone for me over here in Australia.
We are more than happy to do so. And of course, it's already a pleasure to have you with us. And thank you for bringing that topic. So, as well, I definitely am interested to see what you're going to say. And of course, before we start with Karena's presentation, let me just say that, of course, Karenna has brought your IVF mindset, the missing piece in your puzzle. This is her topic that she will discuss today. And Karenna Wood is an international fertility coach, founder of Your Fertility Hub as well. And as I mentioned, she is right now in Australia, Perth. So that is why this is the timing for our webinar. So it is already evening for you. So thank you for spending this evening with us as well. And as always, I just want to mention that Stronger Together initiative has been brought to you so that we can help you out as much as we can. We definitely want you to educate. We definitely want you to have an opportunity to ask your questions to our top fertility experts, but also fertility coaches like Karenna today. So thank you already for joining our initiative, Karenna. And as always, I want to thank our ambassadors and partners for their support. And I'm not sure if you see, but actually there is also a picture of Karenna Wood right there, as she is also our ambassador. So thank you so much for supporting this. This definitely means a lot to us as well. Thank you. And as always, we will start with the presentation, and afterwards it will be time for your questions. All you need to do is just put the questions in the chat section, and afterwards we will simply answer them for you. And well, let's start. I guess we can go ahead. Yes? Are you ready?
I am, yeah, absolutely.
Wonderful.
Well, hi everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in, or if you're watching this on the recording. Hi, we've got people coming in for already. Ellie from Athens, hello from Cape Town, South Africa. It is amazing to connect with you all tonight. So as Caroline said, my name is Karenna Wood. I'm a fertility coach, and that means that I work purely and specialize in the emotional side of infertility. So I've been coaching now for nearly 10 years, I think it is. And yeah, I really enjoy working with women on this side of things. But as per the title of the presentation tonight, what I often find is that our mindset and our emotional side of things is often the last thing that we come to look at. The majority of clients that come to me have been in a fertility journey for quite a while. They're often going through fertility treatments, maybe not the first time, maybe several cycles in. So it really is often the last piece that people start looking at, unfortunately, which is their emotions and their thoughts. Because, as you know, going through infertility and fertility treatment can be incredibly stressful and put a lot of stress and emotional trauma, I guess really is the word, amongst you and your life. It is so all-encompassing. It is, the levels, unfortunately, of depression and anxiety amongst women going through infertility are very high, and unfortunately, sadly, really undiagnosed. So it really is an area that we need to be doing more in, and that's my campaign. That's my life's work, is to really champion the role of emotional support, and to help. One day my dream is to get that as a standard part of anybody going through a fertility journey and all fertility care, that the emotional well-being is considered just as important as all the physical side of things. So often, and what I mean by the last piece in the puzzle is often infertility can be multifactorial. So there's a lot of factors that can be in the mix there. And when we start out working on, we sort of looking around a very medical diagnosis. What's wrong? Is there anything that's causing this? And that's often the first step. And as we know, often 30% can be male factor, 30% around there can be female factor, and 30% unexplained. So we can see from some of those figures that there's the medical issues that we can look at, and some that can be worked on. And then often the next step goes to looking at healthy lifestyle. Diet is a very particular area of focus, very important area. Supplements can be another area, and just generally looking around lifestyle. And people sometimes go down roads of looking into toxins to improve, lowering toxins to improve egg health and sperm health, and lots of other areas, movement and exercise, all of these areas. But as I said, it's often this last piece in the puzzle where we actually check in and go inward in ourselves and say, okay, how am I feeling around this? How am I doing? And that's really what we wanted to chat about today, around how this can really benefit you, looking at your mindset and your emotions and your thoughts as you go through IVF. So making a start on the actual presentation, the first thing, I guess, is almost what I'm going to do with the presentation is almost go through like a little bit of a coaching session to really think. The first step is to think about how are you feeling about IVF. When we talk around IVF, when that comes up, what do you feel in your body? Do you feeling sort of a tightness in your tummy? Or, often my clients describe feeling short of breath, not being able to breathe fully. What are those feelings that come up when we talk around IVF? And it doesn't really matter whether it's you're preparing to go into IVF, you're mid-cycle, you just come out of a cycle, wherever you are in the IVF process, checking in with how you're feeling is really important. And this will change as you go through different days and different processes and that sort of thing. But to really understand how you're feeling about IVF and understand your core response to it emotionally is really important. And one of the best ways I find to do this is through journaling. So if you've never journaled before, it doesn't have to be a big deal. It really is just getting your thoughts out of your head, because often they can be going round and round in a huge loop. And it's really important. We can actually break that chain, that cycle of thinking, by getting it out. And it can help us process some of those emotions in a much more productive way, and help us move towards any sort of decision making or clarity, or even just, as we're talking about, awareness. Sometimes you can be being incredibly unkind to yourself in a way that you would never speak to anyone else about, but those are the thoughts that you're having. And so by getting them out and understanding them, we can start to then almost rationalize them, or, question them and challenge them. And I think that's what's really important, because one of the key components that I teach my clients and members is that we can't control infertility. And that's really hard, especially in the modern day. To not be able to control something is very difficult. So we can't control IVF particularly. It's even more feels out of our hands. So what we can do, though, is control our response to it. We can control our thinking, how we think around IVF. And I think that's a really important point, to really take that on board and to think, okay, yes, I can't control these things, and to really try and reduce your stress in trying to control those, and think, okay, I'm going to put my energy in controlling how I think about the IVF, and then that just widens everything out a bit and really helps you to put your focus on something you actually can control, which is really important. So checking in with your thinking, and if you are thinking something that is unhealthy, then challenge that, because you were the only one that can challenge these negative thoughts. You are the only one who can stop some of these negative thoughts. We can't change what's going on, but we can change how we're responding to it and how we're thinking about it. So really checking in and being kinder to yourself, and maybe asking, if you're saying thoughts like, oh, this will never work, it didn't work last time, to say, okay, is this rational? Is this true? And is this helping me right now? Is this helping me? Is this healthy for me to think this so really asking yourself those 3 questions around the thoughts that you might be having and the emotions that you might be having around IVF, and checking in and just being really keen to listen to that intuitive voice within you underneath all of the thoughts and the numbers and the processes and the front brain thinking, the analytical thinking. Really taking a moment to just tune into what you intuitively are feeling, and that's often that first voice, that first thing that you say is can be how you're really feeling. And I guess the next question is, and this is where it becomes a coaching approach rather than a counseling approach, is coaching is about trying to move you forward. So how do you want to be feeling about IVF? And I think that's a really key question, is once we have an awareness of how you are actually feeling, let's think about what the goal might be in terms of moving you towards how you want to be feeling about IVF. And some of those things might be, I want to feel positive, I want to feel hopeful, I want to feel assertive and involved in the process, I want to feel that I did my best through the process. What are these thoughts? Or do you want to feel that IVF isn't controlling your life, that you're controlling, the IVF and managing that you're living first? Or is it about relationships? Is it around how you want to be feeling more like you're going through this together? Or whatever it is, have a think about how you want to be feeling and write those things down as well. And maybe think around how you can work towards getting there, So if you're not feeling and thinking some perhaps negative and unhealthy things, what are you thinking instead? And maybe use that word instead as a key term to go, okay, I'm not going to think like this. I'm going to choose to think like this instead. And really moving yourself forward into thinking in a more healthy way around IVF and the process you're going to be going through. Now, as we move on to the next slide, I'm just saying positive or negative because it's almost like IVF is this 2-horse race. You're either positive or negative at the end, and that's the result. And I think there's a lot of pressure, therefore. Often in life we don't have these things where it's yay or nay, it's decisive like that. So it's really important that we take away some of that pressure, because I think I've had some clients in the past say things like, if this doesn't work, I don't know what I'm going to do. If this, doesn't work, I'm not going to be okay. That's putting a huge amount of pressure on the positive result. Obviously, we all want that positive result, but what we need to do is to do this in a realistic way and manage the thoughts and emotions around positive or negative. And one thing I always say is to have a positive plan and a negative plan. So especially as you're in that 2-week wait and you're approaching your beta test, it's really good to feel like you have a plan around particularly a negative test result. So let's just say, for example, a negative result. Who are you going to call? What are you going to do that day? Is there something you'd like to eat that day? Is there something you'd like to watch on telly? Or is there somewhere you'd like to go, like a special place, a very healing place that you find where you can go? Is there someone that you want to call you, that you can actually state, I want this, and being clear with others around you as well. What do you want around that test result? Anyone who is aware of what you're going through, be really clear and say, don't call me for a couple of days, I will call you, or whatever it is, just so you have those set boundaries. And even with just knowing that you have that plan in case it's a negative result, and also having already had some discussions, I think it's really important to have those with your partner if you're going through this together, or have some discussions around with the counsellor at the clinic or your doctor around what the next steps would be if this was a negative cycle, just so you have that plan and your awareness. It's not putting your energy and focus into a negative result. It's just having that plan and then being able to move and shift your energy to feeling positive around the cycle being a positive cycle. And I guess following on from that, often I get asked around, can I be optimistic? Should I be optimistic going into a cycle? And I think for me, this is really key, because often I find that we're putting up a pessimistic guard where we think that we are going to be able to protect ourselves if we're saying to ourselves all the time, well, I knew it wouldn't work, or I don't think it's going to work, or this will never work. These kind of things, we want to go into something almost putting our guard up to say pessimistic, because we think that's going to guard our feelings. Well, in my experience over the years, what I've found is that you're best to go through this in an optimistic way, because underneath all of those thoughts is this hope within you that this is going to work. And that little part of you, that hope, all that's burning all the way through your fertility journey, that hope is so important. And we often shut it out because it's painful. And I understand that. But we need to foster that hope. We need to allow ourselves to go into that on our good days when we can, and visualize this working, visualize becoming a parent, visualize the pregnancy, whatever it is that resonates with you in terms of that image around getting to where you want to be. It's okay to visualize that. It's okay to be optimistic about this cycle, because unfortunately, if it is a negative, the fall is very hard. The sadness, the grief, the loss of it, is so hard anyway, that having gone through it in an optimistic way, you'll have gone through every day of going through that cycle in a better, more positive way. And that in itself is very powerful and very important. So, and a lot of the studies actually show around optimism, about how important optimism is to your mindset and to your decision making. We are actually a lot more clear. We have clarity in our thinking when we're feeling more optimistic. A lot of things generally flow better in your life when you're feeling more optimistic. The IVF process and all the appointments that you have to go to, you know what it's like when you're feeling in a good place. You know those good days when you have those. Well, when we tune into our hope, when we foster that hope, when we allow ourselves to believe what we believe underneath all along, that this could work, that I am going to be a parent one day. We don't know how, we don't know when yet, but we have to believe. And it's taking that belief. And that's so important. If there's only one message that you take from tonight, is that it is okay to believe and to live within that positive belief, rather than putting the guard up of negativity, because it really is your lived experience of IVF, your lived experience of infertility every day that is just as important. You are just as important, your mindset, your health, your emotional well-being, your relationships, because how you feel impacts all of those things. So being in that and looking after yourself and that emotional well-being, allowing yourself to be optimistic, is incredibly important. One other little thing that I want to talk around is also about being assertive. Now, there's a difference between assertive and being aggressive. I don't by any means be aggressive. What I mean by being assertive in your mindset and in your approach to IVF is really tuning in that this is incredibly important to you. Every decision, every appointment, you are working up to it. It is so important that you are managing this in the best way that you can. You are asking the questions, that you are understanding everything, that you are being clear what you need. So I would love if you could be more assertive with the people around you in terms of saying, I can't do this right now. I don't need this right now. I can't attend this baby shower or family gathering right now. It's just not healthy for me. And just being clear what you need and what you want. Right down to the, okay, it's egg retrieval day. Can you please leave a lasagna on my doorstep? Whatever it is that's going to help you through this, just be clear, because there's a lot of people that love you around you that do know what you're going through, and they want to help you, but they don't know how. They don't understand IVF. They don't understand the process. They don't understand the sheer depth of emotions that go along with this journey. So if we're clear and assertive around helping them help you, then everything just works a little better. And that's the same with your partner as well, is being clear around what you need from each other and being assertive. And lastly, it's the same with your clinic, because it's really important that you understand what's going on, that you are happy, that you feel that you're getting everything you need. And it just is really important in that doctor-patient relationship to not be passive, to be in those appointments, to really understand them. And that maybe mean taking somebody else with you to those appointments so you can talk about it afterwards, understand, or making a phone call afterwards, following up on something that you weren't quite sure of. So just being really clear that you are managing that journey as in the way that you want to manage it is really important. So I just wanted to mention that tip. Now, another little thing to discuss with IVF, a lot of it comes down to numbers. They say it's a numbers game, so there's a lot of numbers. So first up, you may have heard things along your journey like you have X% chance of conceiving naturally. Your IVF success rate might be this or that. You get X number of follicles, your FHS is this level, your AMH is this level. And then it's all around, particularly after egg retrieval, it's all around fertilization rates, grading of embryos, all of this kind of thing. How many embryos do you have? The numbers are immense and it is mind-boggling. And it is our core brain, our subconscious brain doesn't work in numbers. You as a person work intuitively around how you feel. So the numbers can be really great in terms of your analytical brain and understanding things, but they can also be incredibly difficult to manage emotionally. And obviously that's where, we're wanting to focus on tonight. So it's really thinking around the numbers. What do you want to know? What do you need to know? Often there's a real need to know these numbers, but what are you going to do with that information? If your doctor, if you're pushing your doctor to, turn around and say you have a 5% chance of conceiving, is that statistic going to help you? Or is it going to hinder you and hinder your mindset? Is it going to make you spiral into negativity, for example? So it's really important with these numbers that you understand what you're going to do with them and rationalizing them as well, because they can become very overwhelming. And I think it's a really important part that, again, we can't control IVF. We can't control those numbers to some extent, but we can control our response to them. So just having a little bit of a think around how maybe if you're going for another cycle, you might manage that a little differently to maybe how you did before, because it can be very overwhelming, or particularly if you're going through your first time, being aware, particularly after the egg retrieval, around how frenzied it can feel around the development of the embryos, the grading, the PGC testing, all of these things, all of these numbers. So just really managing your response to them. Now, one thing that I specialize in is actually providing women with tools. I'm really, really passionate that it's not just around saying, here, get some emotional support. And people go, well, what does that mean? Does that just mean talking to a counselor? Because I think it's really important. For some people, talking to the counselor at a clinic is all they need or everything that they need. For others, what I often talk around with emotional support is it's almost like a buffet. Like, we need to think of it like a buffet. Like in life, we all need different things. Like in life, we all respond to stress differently. Relaxation and mindset tools are the same. We all prefer different things and resonate with different things. So this is actually why I built an app, which you can see here, called Your Fertility Toolbox, because I wanted to share with everyone the tools that I've been using within my coaching practice for years, really successfully. So I wanted to just share a few of those with you tonight, just to give you some ideas around ways that you can manage your emotional well-being and some practical tools that you can use to support you as you going through the process. And just to let you know, within the app, there's a whole section called IVF Thrive. And in there is a video guide and a meditation for each stage of IVF, all about the emotional side of things, because that's what's really important. We often talk around, and there's a lot of information around about preparing for IVF in other ways, but not a lot around the emotional side of things. And there's also a meditation for each stage. And meditation is one of the first tools, because I often find this is probably the most successful one, or probably the one that people come to me for or know me for. So meditation doesn't have to be this image of somebody Buddha-like sat in silence like this. I can't meditate like that. I create meditations. I'm a meditation teacher, but I can't personally sit very easily in complete silence. It's something you almost have to train yourself to do. What I find really successful is guided meditations. And this is where you're listening to a relaxing audio track with a voice talking you through something. And also, because I practice hypnotherapy, I actually use the hypnotherapy to get in through the meditation and work on your mind and your mindset. So listening to some specific fertility meditations can be a really good tool that you can use. And as I said, I have ones for different stages of IVF, but I also have different ones for how you're feeling, like clearing meditations or love your body meditations, or just a body scan, a relaxation. So you could use meditation and just try it. It's not for everyone, but what I say around this buffet of emotional tools is just go, try a few things out, find what works for you. It's not going to be the same for everyone, but find what works for you, and try listening to a few guided meditations. There's some on YouTube. I have a 2-week wait one on YouTube, which you could check out, and just give it a whirl and see if it's something that might help you. Kind of akin to meditation is mindfulness. Now, what mindfulness means is just being in the present moment. And this is very powerful for you during infertility, because we often spend the majority of our thinking time going over the past or in the future. Often I find imagining a future that you don't have yet. You can be catastrophizing about the worst case of whatever's going on in your journey right now, catastrophizing a future without children, trying to manage your identity without children, all of these kind of things. And these are very stressful thoughts, very anxious creating thoughts. So if we can actually just find ways to be in the present moment, because the present moment is the only thing that's real. It's the only thing that we actually have is the present moment. And to be more present in our conversations, particularly with your partner, is really powerful. So instead of thinking around, what am I going to say next, or allowing your mind to drift, being really present in those conversations with your partner particularly can be very powerful as you go through IVF. But mindfulness, you may feel, is really, really hard to achieve, and I don't underestimate this. When you're going through infertility, the thoughts are very overwhelming. There is so much going on in your life right now. It can be hard to achieve a state of mindfulness. And again, it's not necessarily around being in silence or being very quiet. I actually really advocate for active mindfulness. So this could be something just like going for a walk in nature and listening to the sounds and the smells and what can you touch, all those kind of things. Just being aware of your senses when you're out and about and bringing yourself back to that moment, because don't judge yourself when you're trying to be mindful and your mind wanders off to the past, the future, or somewhere else. Don't judge yourself. It's hard. Just bring yourself back and just keep bringing yourself back, and that's okay. But other things that you could do is like, mindfully playing the guitar, or if you're an artist or you used to do something, painting or exercising, you can mindfully exercise. Basically, it's just a way of giving your brain a space from all the thoughts and all of the overwhelm, I guess, of infertility. And I think just akin to that is that there is a lot of overwhelm, there's a lot of information, and I find a lot of that obsessive Googling and fact finding and that sort of thing. Taking that back and controlling that a little bit is to just say, I'm going to put a limit on my researching. I'm going to switch the computer off at this time. I'm going to not have my phone in the bedroom. Whatever it is, actually can really reduce your stress. So having a think around being more mindful with yourself and that researching and that hunger for information, often just being is one of the best things that you can do. IVF is a lot about doing, but finding ways to just be, even though it's hard and some days you're not going to be able to achieve that, is very, very worth doing. So another one of the tools is thinking around, how are you getting your connection and your support? What is your support as you're going through IVF? Now, it really can vary as to how many people are aware, how many people you've let in to the journey. That's a very personal decision. But however wide your network is of people supporting you, just making sure that you have the support you need and almost asking yourself that question around, what support have I got? Is there a gap? You know, who is my support team? And that might mean your doctor, the nurse at the clinic, the counselor at the clinic, your acupuncturist or naturopath, your coach like myself, your best friend. Who is this support network and what do you need? And also really thinking around the connection, because we're often keen, especially initially, to go very much out wider. Where can I find this information? Where can I find this? But it's being really clear with yourself about what is benefiting you. So, for example, is being in 5 IVF groups on Facebook, if you're getting benefit from them, fantastic. You can get some great information from them. But I've found a lot of people find them incredibly overwhelming. So if you're not getting the connection and the support that you need and the positivity that you need, maybe it's time to take a break from them, leave the group, mute the group, whatever it is. But just being really clear around the connection and the support that you need. For example, within our Fertility Toolbox app, we have a private community which is completely away from social media, and it is completely different to a lot of the other groups. We manage it to be a very positive and supportive place where the focus is on how you're feeling about everything, less about the information overload. So just thinking about what is going to be best for you in terms of that connection support, and making sure that you have that is a really key part of how you're going to be feeling. Mindset, the title of the presentation tonight, and I guess everyone feels it's almost that elusive mindset, that it's, you know, what is my IVF mindset? What is that place that I want to get to? And it's almost that goal mindset that we talked around in the first couple of slides. So thinking around where you want to get to and what are the tools that are going to get you there. Your mindset underneath everything is really tuned into your belief about this cycle, your belief about IVF, your belief about your doctor, your belief about your partner, your belief about everything, and your belief around you and your hope for this journey that you're going to go through. So if you're wanting to work on your mindset, I'd really tune into hope and that, and also gratitude. Gratitude can be a huge part of moving your mindset forward. So when you're journaling, or if you could just, you know, think of 3 things when you go to sleep each night that you were grateful for that day, however small, this can really start to transform your mindset. So it can literally be, my partner was amazing, he brought me a cup of tea today, somebody gave me a seat on the bus today, or, you know, whatever it was, I'm just really, you know, grateful to have a roof over my head and a fridge full of food. Whatever it is that you can find to be grateful for, putting your focus on gratitude really shifts things, because infertility is a lot around lack and loss. So when we focus on what we do have, what we are grateful for, it's really wonderful. I've seen some huge shifts in how people feel just through looking at gratitude and really starting a daily practice. And that's what it is with a lot of these tools, is that you have to tune into them. You have to use them regularly. This is not a one and done situation, because your mindset and your feelings and thoughts are going to fluctuate on a hourly basis, pretty much, definitely on a daily basis. So it may be that you need this tool today or another tool tomorrow, or that you need to start a routine of journaling or meditating or being mindful, walking, whatever it is. But doing something regularly is actually incredibly important, especially for your mindset. So gratitude, sorry, I just already talked about on that. Gratitude is one of my favorite things. Now, life outside IVF. I had the most wonderful conversation with one of my members in the toolbox today, who was supporting someone else who's saying, how do I stop obsessing over IVF? And she said, I still matter. And I've taken this into my own hands, that I am valuing me and the me outside of IVF. And I just thought that was so amazing that she was saying that to someone else to support it, and saying that to herself, because I know her journey and where she's been through over the last few months. For her to get to a place where she's saying, I value myself, I matter, is huge. And these are the kind of shifts that we can get when we really work on our emotional well-being. So it's so important to find a way to widen your lens, that you are remembering the you, and especially the you as a couple, outside of IVF. We can't let it totally consume you, because it is not healthy. It's not healthy for you. It's not healthy for your relationship, and very much not healthy for your emotional well-being. So really just checking in and thinking, okay, how can I, maintain some things outside of IVF? So if you're going very strict on a diet or very strict on this, is that maintainable over that whole period? Are you better having maybe more of an 80-20 mentality and just being a bit kinder to yourself? Do you still want to reconnect with your local netball team, or go to your pottery class, or whatever it is? What are the things that made you you? What was the pre-infertility you doing that you're not doing now? Really key question. Having a think around those things that you're not doing now and trying to put them back, some of them back. You can't do all of them alongside IVF, but trying to put the you back into your IVF journey is incredibly important, and will again give a huge shift for you. Relationship support. This is another key area. Now, relationships I often find actually get stronger in most cases, not all cases, but often get a lot stronger as you go through IVF. But there is a lot of strain. So there is a lot of strain at that time, at that moment. Often that strength really shows up later on. But finding ways to support your relationship as you go through IVF. Now, the really typical thing, I am just generalizing, is that the woman feels like we never talk about IVF, we don't talk about it enough. The man often feels it's all we talk about. That's a very general statement, but I've heard it play out many, many times over the years. So if you think about what you're both needing there, to really try and find some areas of compromise on that, I often suggest having limits around fertility talk time and fertility worry time. I often say 7 o'clock is the worry time, or 7 o'clock is the talk time, and we'll do that till 8 o'clock, and then we cut it off and we do something else. So really having a think around what's going to work for your relationship, investing in your relationship as you go through this as well. Date nights, still doing things, having an experience together, maybe doing something more than just a restaurant if you can during COVID right now. At some sort of experience where you can bond together, or some nostalgic experience, something back in your relationship from when you first started. It's really important to try and make that connection, and if necessary, get some support It's actually really, really important. Interviewed recently Dr. Gad Lavie from the New England Fertility Institute, and his wife Samantha. She's a relationship therapist. He's a fertility specialist. And we talked all around how important relationship support is as you make all these decisions and as you go through this process. So it is very, very important. So reaching out for some couple support, couples therapy, using the counsellor at your clinic as well, very, very important. A last little tool is a lovely thing called affirmations. Affirmations are positive, forward-facing statements. And just Google fertility affirmations, or we have some beautiful ones in the toolbox which you can download. It's very powerful to be looking at a statement every day of where you want to get to, where you want your emotions and your mindset to get to. So finding some positive fertility affirmations that really resonate with you. They'll be different for everybody. Finding those particular ones that resonate with you and stick them everywhere, all over your house, above the light switch, on your mirror, on the fridge, on your phone screensaver. So your brain is reading them over and over again. And what you're actually doing is changing the neural pathways in your brain. So it's very powerful brain training, whatever you want to call it, but you're changing, you're saying, I'm consciously wanting to think like this instead of thinking like that. So using that as a really great tool to shift your mindset. So what I want to say lastly is that IVF is an incredibly stressful thing, but there are tools that you can use to experience IVF in a better way. And that's why I called some of my materials IVF Thrive, because we don't want to just survive through IVF. We want to find ways to thrive through it. And even though sometimes you may not feel that's possible, every day I see how that works. I've seen that possible, and I see firsthand the transformation and the shift that we get in women when we use these tools and we start looking after our emotional well-being during IVF. It is the most amazing transformation in your lived experience every day and as you go through that cycle. So you really can experience this in a better way. And it just takes a little bit of that daily work and that decision to say, I am going to be looking after myself and putting me as a priority, my emotional well-being, my relationships at the core of what we're going through. So really encourage you to check out whatever tools are going to resonate with you. You're welcome to come into our toolbox. You can join it for free, or you can access the full toolbox for just $19 a month. It's just the price of a pizza. Somebody said to me the other day, we try to keep it incredibly, incredibly affordable. But if my tools don't resonate with you, there's lots of other people out there. But just to know there is this emotional support out there, and to find your emotional support tribe and what tools are going to resonate with you is going to support you as you go through IVF, and it's going to support you as you go through pregnancy, as you go through early parenthood. These tools are incredibly powerful, and once you find them and once you find what works for you, you will find these really can work as you go through. Lastly, I just want to say is that I'm here for you. I'm on your team. And I think even just having that, so knowing that somebody is out there caring for you, cheerleading you on, supporting you as you go through this is so important. So I'm going to be your cheerleader. Reach out and find that connection in your life as well. And just really place yourself as the most important person, your emotional well-being as the most important thing as you go through IVF. If you'd like some more information on this, you can come and join the Toolbox app at yourfertilityhub.com/toolbox. You can also listen to our really popular podcast. There's 50 episodes now. So that's jam-packed with lots of information around different emotions that you might be feeling, how to deal with those emotions, and also loads of stories and interviews and tips. Or you can come and do one-to-one fertility coaching with me as well. So thank you for tuning in and, listening to me talk around just how important this area is. I really hope if you can take one thing from this is to take one action after this webinar to really look after yourself.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for such a brilliant presentation with lots of tips that we all could use for sure. And well, from my point of view, that toolbox app definitely sounds like a good idea, just to like everything in one. So, and easy as well. So thanks for that. Thank you for bringing this to us today. And well, of course, now it is time for our Q&A session. So there are a few questions ready, but let me remind everyone that if you would like to ask anything, Karenna is here and we'll be happy to help you out a bit as well. All right, so are you ready to start with the questions?
Sure.
Perfect. And let's go for the first question that we have right here. We've had 3 failed IVFs. I'm starting to notice that my husband is losing hope and interest. How can I talk to him and work with him to get positive mindset and hope for next rounds?
That's really tough. It's really, really tough. And you and your husband will almost wax and wane as to how you're feeling. And I can imagine after 3 failed IVFs and presumably a whole journey just to get to those IVFs, there really does get to that point where you can feel like you're losing hope. So I think, first of all, one thing that I always advocate for is to try a bit of active listening. So to really get to the bottom of how someone's feeling, often you can't have those in those quick conversations, or often you're not really getting to the crux of how someone's feeling straight away. So I have an active listening exercise that I teach people where you're basically, sitting in front of each other in an undisturbed place and actually saying, you're not allowed to interrupt the other person at all, which is really weird. At first, it is a little bit weird. And you're literally saying, okay, are you losing hope? How are you feeling about moving forward? Let him speak and then say, anything else? Let him speak again. What else? Anything else? And keep questioning, because often it might not be the first thing he says or the third thing that he says. It's likely to be the 5th or 6th thing that he might say when given that real space to say how he feels, that might be the truth of how he's feeling and where he's at. Then you flip that around and do the same for you. He's not allowed to interrupt. And you're just basically asking anything else until you feel that you've bottomed that out. And also repeat back what that person said. It can be very powerful when somebody actually sort of summarizes what you've said and says, am I correct? Because communication is a two-way thing, but we often don't hear what someone's saying, if you know what I mean. We often miss things quite easily. So try that as an exercise, and I think that can be really illuminating to get to the bottom of some thoughts or feelings that he might be having. It is really common after several failed attempts to lose hope, and maybe it's around the time of saying to him or talking about having a small break. I know people are very scared of taking a break in terms of feeling that time pressure. But that for him might be a really important thing to just say, look, we're just going to have a month or 2 off, have a window of time to just be us and reconnect again before even discussing next steps, next rounds, etc. Having that healing time, because you need to almost grieve and deal with some of the trauma that comes along with where you've been. That journey of 3 failed IVFs will have come with so many ups and downs. So if you can have a way to maybe think around that can be scary in itself, and I get that. But just have a think around what ways could you release that pressure off him in terms of the future rounds. And another thing, Susie, may be that he might need someone to talk to himself. Often I find I work purely with women who are going through this. Often I find when I ask that their partner has never spoken to anyone, I would say 95% of the work that I've done, 95% of the partners have never gone off and spoken to a counselor or a therapist, or gone to a men's shed or whatever it is, where they have their out, they have someone that they can talk to about this stuff, because they do talk in a different way and they have different needs. So maybe having a think around what he might need to get some more connection and support to help him. And finally, just, we talked a little bit around tuning into that original hope, having a way of, asking him what he needs to reconnect with that vision of being a parent, reconnect with that path, that belief, I guess, that you will get there one day. Don't know how, don't know when yet, but you will get there, and what he needs to help to be stronger on that. So I hope that helps, Susie. There's a few sort of little tips in there, but yeah, you're welcome to connect with me afterwards if I can help at all with that.
Thank you so much, Susie, for your very first question. And of course, Karenna, thank you so much for your tips, for your advice. Means a lot, and I'm sure that Susie have found it useful. And I just want to mention that Susie has added another question, so let me go straight to that, okay? So my third IVF attempt ended in miscarriage in 6th week. That was 3 weeks ago. I want to try again, but I'm scared. What would you recommend for me as the first step to get the right balance?
First of all, I'm incredibly sorry for your loss. A loss is a loss at any stage, and I think that's really important, particularly when it comes to dealing with miscarriage around infertility. There is so much riding on a positive test. To get a positive test and then to lose that is incredibly painful and unfortunately incredibly common. I actually did a poll in our Toolbox community last week and asked how many women had suffered a miscarriage, and 82% had suffered one or more miscarriages. So this is frighteningly common, unfortunately. With miscarriage, what we're often not doing is grieving this loss, and it is a loss. It varies between individuals about how you think around whether life starts at which point or whatever, but to you, when you got that positive pregnancy test, there was hopes, there was dreams, there was a due date that you were looking forward to. All of those things you need to process and work through and grieve. Now, this week is actually, and on the 15th is International Baby Loss Awareness Day. We'll be holding a wave of light at 7 p.m. at your time, wherever you are in the world, 7 p.m. to light a candle and leave it burning for an hour, just to mark the loss, because we don't, with miscarriage, ceremonize or mark the loss, but we need to, because that is having a ritual around, like we do with death, having funerals is a really important part of being human, of marking that loss, and we often don't do that with miscarriage. So maybe have a look around the Wave of Light. We're holding a ceremony in Sydney that I am part of, but there's also events going on around the world, or just doing it privately in your own home. Finding a way to mark that loss is really important. Your loss was only 3 weeks ago, so it's still very raw, very, very real, where after the 3rd IVF, to then get pregnant and then lose that baby, this is really huge. So I would love it if you could, Susie, take some time out to really process your grief and work on your grief before necessarily moving on to any next steps, because you're scared and you're fearful, because that really hurt, and it's scary to think about going through that again and putting yourself up into that place where that hurt can happen again. So you have to be ready, you have to be stronger again, and finding the ways to get stronger. So I would definitely take some time and look at ways that you can grieve some of the trauma and the loss that you've been through.
And once again, thank you so much for sharing, but also, of course, fingers crossed that you will feel better and you will get through this, I am sure, as well. And actually, one more question from Susie. For now, at least, it seems that it might be our last one. But of course, please let me remind everyone that we will be slowly finishing. However, if you have any questions that you would like to ask, this is time to do so. So go ahead and type those in. And Susie is asking, so do you recommend to be on IVF Facebook groups if I am still a bit stressed? I get the impression those groups overwhelm me at times.
It's really common. I really do find that I get told that a lot, that these groups can be, as I said, amazing places to get some information and some tips. And that you can't take away. They're wonderful for that. But overwhelm is definitely an issue with them. And we go on Facebook technically to be entertained. So when you're going on and your newsfeed is full of other people's negative or positive experiences, it can be incredibly draining. So draining when they're negative and incredibly hurtful when we're seeing trigger posts. So really tuning in, I think you've almost intuitively said they are overwhelming you at times. So maybe just give it a try. Just mute the group for a little while and see how you feel, or limit your time within the group. Just finding some ways to manage that, because you're not going to miss anything. And I think that's the key. It's not a FOMO situation, fear of missing out. You're not going to miss anything by muting the group for a while. You need to look after you first, and particularly having discussed what you've just been through, taking a mental break is really, really important right now. And definitely that will mean from these groups. What I've actually been told by many of our members inside the toolbox is that they have left every single one of the IVF groups and are purely now a member of our private positive community, where we don't even allow trigger posts or anything like that. So really it's about finding, there might be one group that you find really great, using that group, but not the others. Whatever it is, tune into your intuition about what you need right now. And it's totally okay to do what you need. You're not going to miss anything, and you're not letting anyone else down. You need to do what you need to do. And if those groups are overwhelming you, then absolutely it's definitely something that you could have a look at to improve your emotional well-being by leaving them, muting them just for a little while, or leaving them completely.
And once again, huge thank you for that recommendation, for that advice. And well, as I've mentioned, this is our last question for today. But Karenna, I would already like to thank you for joining us for tonight, for all the tips that you have just provided, and of course for answering the questions, and also for joining us, of course, tonight, because this means a lot. We definitely need more topics on that, more. Because I mean, everyone needs to sometimes to simply hear that there are possible ways to simply manage all of this.
Yeah, to feel better. There are ways to feel better, and I think it's finding the right ones for you. So yeah, it's really, really important you look after yourself as you go through this process.
Couldn't agree more, of course. So thank you so much. And as you can see, there are thank yous coming up right here. So I just want you to see them. And thank you so much for the wonderful webinar and moderation of the session. Need to fly, unfortunately, but thank you, Ellie, for joining us as well, of course. And there's another thank you from Myrtle Beach. So fabulous. Thank you so much. And as you can see, there's also some answers from Susie. Thank you. It does help. There are more thank yous. And once more, thank you for your replies, Karenna. I appreciate it.
No problem, Susie.
And okay, that's another one from Susie. So you should see, I'm glad I watched it today. I had a day off today. All right. Glad to hear this then. Thank you so much. And is there anything you would like to add?
I'd just like to add, just finding the right support for you. Go out there and just really listen to your intuition about what you need, the steps you might need to take, the support you might need to get, the next steps in your journey. You intuitively know a lot about what you need. So just really listening into yourself, putting yourself back at the center of this journey is so important. And I'd just like to thank everyone who has attended at this funny time of the day as well, and anyone who watches it on the replay. And just to know that I'm here, I'm in the Toolbox app, I'm on yourfertilityhub.com, or the podcast, if I can be of any support to anyone moving forward.
That's lovely to hear. Thank you so much for that support as well. And let me just mention, as Karenna mentioned as well, it is being recorded. It will be available on myivfancestors.com, but also on our YouTube channel. So if you subscribe, that way you will know when the new video is uploaded. So I can only encourage you to do that. And of course, it will be uploaded today as well. And also, I just want you to thank once again for joining us tonight at this. Of course, we don't usually do this at this time, but I'm still very happy that you were able to join us, and I'm sure it has been helpful. Karenna, once again, I definitely hope we will have a chance to do one or more webinars with you. It's been a pleasure to have you here. So thank you to all of you, and everyone have a beautiful rest of the day. And Karenna, have a nice evening, have a nice restful night, and I just hope to see you here pretty much soon as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Take care. Bye.
Bye.